in the last lesson, you chose your quote from Percy Jackson, you thought about what it meant, and you talked to some other people about what they thought that it meant. So today we're going to do step 4, writing a paragraph or two using that quote and using evidence. So you could have chosen this quote about his mother. I definitely remember that feeling when I was young, of just plain happiness when my mother was standing near me. I can relate to this quote. Or maybe you used this from my example last week, how names are powerful things. This one's very interesting because I can distinctly remember a time in my life when a friend betrayed me. Maybe I'll write about that one today. This quote here is a little bit controversial. No gift comes without a price. I have received some gifts before that, well, they weren't really gifts at all. They were more like a bribe. Has that ever happened to you? Maybe that's the one you're going to write about today. This one, suspecting and knowing. I know a lot of people who suspected something of someone that turned out not to be true and it ruined everything. But what about this one? I could tell you 1,000 stories where I tried to show somebody something and they could not see what was so obvious to me. Do you have a story like that? Which quote are you writing about today? Well, now that you have that quote chosen, it's time to start writing. The first thing you do on any writing assignment is you have to hook the reader in. You got to give like a general statement and a topic sentence so the person knows what you're talking about. Then you need to write a few sentences that introduce where you got the quote from. These sentences should be short and brief, but you must include where you got the quote from, who said that quote, and just like a brief sentence of where it came from. So here's my example. Young man, names are powerful thing, writes Rick Riordan in Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. In my very first sentence, I hook the reader in with the quotation, the author's name, and the title of the book in the same sentence. The only thing I have left to do now is give a general statement and a topic sentence. How's this for a quick summary? Percy is a young boy just learning his powers. And one of the things that he will learn is that there is power in names. That's a pretty good first paragraph. I feel like I've hooked the reader in and I've introduced the topic pretty well. So now I have to give an explanation of what I think that quotation means. So let me read what I already wrote. Young man, names are powerful things, writes Rick Riordan in Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. Percy is a young boy just learning about his powers, and one of the things he will learn is that there is power in names. I think I could explain that a little more. In the United States now, the people are divided. The reason we are divided is because the words we use to describe ourselves. If we stopped calling ourselves Mexican American, Republican, Catholic, or blue collar, and started calling every person Americans, things would change. Okay, that sounds pretty good. It sounds very passionate, don't you think? Maybe that's too much explanation. Oh, okay, so I'm gonna go back and edit it later. But the next thing you need to do in your first draft is start a new paragraph and give some evidence and examples so people know why you think that way. So here is my evidence. For example, according to my uncle, Democrats are ruining this country. However, according to my grandmother, Republicans are only out for profit and don't care about equality. Dude, I hear this all the time. My family argues about this all the time. I think they just need to stop watching Fox News and CNN, and I think they just need to shut off the news and stop arguing. But those two, my grandma and my uncle, they're good examples of evidence because they're always arguing. And my whole point is people are arguing. And they're always using names. Republicans, Democrats, Californians, Texans. They always have a name for the person that they're arguing about. But that evidence doesn't mean a thing unless I explain what the evidence means. I explain my example so I could prove my point. So let me read what I just wrote, and then let me add on to that. For example, according to my uncle, Democrats are ruining this country. However, according to my grandmother, Republicans are only out for profit and don't care about equality. So now I need to explain what that means. However, if the phrase changed to people are ruining this country and people are only out for profit, the conversation already has a different feel to it. My uncle and grandmother would start talking about the ideas, not blaming people. Isn't that powerful? I think that's powerful. I feel pretty proud of that writing. I gave my ideas, I defended my ideas, and then I cited my uncle and my grandmother as evidence. But to make my writing the most powerful, I need to restate that quote at the end of the paragraph to like bring it all back. So here is everything I wrote. Now the very last thing is to say that quote again. I think that's a powerful paragraph. Now the last thing is optional. If you want to do a second paragraph with a second example, that's cool too. The more examples you have, the stronger your point is. But I think I made my point pretty well. So now that you've chosen one of these quotes, you need to compose a paragraph where you hook the reader in, and then write a few sentences to introduce where you got that quote from, and then give an explanation of what that quote means to you. In a new paragraph, you're going to be giving your evidence. So your first paragraph is introducing the reader to your ideas and the quotation you picked. The second paragraph is your evidence, your examples, your explanation, your thoughts. That should give you 2 solid paragraphs minimum. And that's it. That should take you about 40 minutes. And if you've already picked your quote and you've asked other people what they thought about it, then you're halfway there. I'm really looking forward to reading what you wrote, because in this case, it's your thoughts and your ideas. And that's what I really like listening to. So go ahead and get to writing.